What is it, guys? Welcome back to some Pro Philosopher 2, Governments and Grievances. Why is it doing this? Okay. I'm fine. I'm just fine. Really? Of course not. We've been here for hours. We've knocked down philosopher after philosopher, but the gate still hasn't accepted the validity of my position. It's not only the gate that's being stubborn here. Gotta reach for my water bottle. Hold up. Stepping back as a strategy isn't panning out. It's making us seem weak. In the last few hours, you've coddled Machiavelli, critique democracy, and given leeway to communism. How do you think that'll play with voters? Tendency to double down rather than reassess, rooted in childhood experience. I needed to go on the offense. I needed a game changer. Whoever's next, I'm really gonna let them have it. Aggressive tendencies could capitalize, if not handle effectively. If not handled effectively. Compounding environmental stress. Factors should be ignored. I just woke up, guys. So technically it's good morning for me, but hope you guys had a good day. Because you deserve a good day. Okay, hold on. Who are you and what are you doing? Apologies. Just making some initial observations to prepare for our upcoming session. I was going to let that scene play out, but I guess we'll get started. Allow me to introduce our resident psychiatrist, Franz Fanon. Born in the French colony of... I don't need therapy. Everyone needs therapy. Being human is hard. It does no good to pretend otherwise. But I am not here to treat you, Senator. I'm here to debate. You claim your American system is perfect, and well, I have thoughts about that. In addition to his psychiatric work, Fanon wrote Fanon wrote extensively about the effects of colonial attitudes on societies and the global struggle of decolonization. He personally participated in the struggle to liberate the Arab population of colonial Algeria from French control. My work is focused on the time and place. I said as much at the start of my first book. The struggles of the colonized in Algiers were not the same as the colonized in South Africa, the native in South Africa, or South America, or the black community in America. But there is a kinship between all the oppressed, which I suppose is why I stand here today. My writings deem immortal by history. The specter of my old reflections hang over your ideals, whether you acknowledge it or not. It's probably better we acknowledge it. Acknowledge that she started. Every institution is colonial society, whatever. A multitude of moral teachers, counselors, and bewilderers separate and be exploited from those with power. In such a situation, the colonized have no choice but to conform to succeed, adopting the manners of their oppressors. But true assimilation is impossible. The colonized will always be reminded of their otherness by the colonizer. No perfect society would allow these inhumane conditions, so we must dismantle them by any means necessary. Bro, he's somewhat right. And so we're faced with an unwinnable dilemma. Governments demand we assimilate, but also demand we remember our place. We're forever caught between two incompatible imperatives. This is the lived reality for the black, for the indigenous, and for any nation actively oppressed. Now, Senator, I believe you plan to let me have it. Yeah, I'm not doing that, Adney. You can keep the lead. What? I'm an old white woman. The optics of my debating race are terrible. The last thing I need during election season is to get canceled. Oh my God. Look, it's like you said at the start. You don't have to prove it all. Just see if we can learn something. Nice to know you were actually listening, but why can't you do it? Do that? Because I'm bad at it, Pumpkin. I'm bad at not arguing. This self-reflection may represent progress for the senator. I guess. That, or she's just doubling down on political cowardice. Well, okay then, Fanon. Let's see how this goes. Yes, I'm sure the process will be informative. This establishes why we have an issue in the first place. Without critical examination, society naturally falls into these patterns. There are forces actively keeping these hierarchies in place, which helps us picture the lengths required to undo them. The culture of the colonizer is not just a surface detail. Like we discussed with Locke, I didn't realize you were a fan. John Locke, acute egomania, situations worsen daily. Without intervention, may become insufferable. He was very insufferable. When did you write that? Let's see, 50 years ago, he stopped coming to his appointments. Yeah, that checks out. I'm a fan of some Lockean ideals, life and liberty, but too often they exist only for a few. Alright, hey, Fanon's spitting right now, I'm not gonna lie. But true assimilation is impossible. On the oppressed is not one that can be met. It is a fundamentally unintendable situation. It is really impossible, though. Is it really impossible, though? I mean, sure, there are races out there, but I will speak to my own experience. To be black is to always be aware of your body and the way others see your body. For a time, among trusted friends, you can perhaps relax, but that only makes the sting worse when the illusion is shattered. Never forget the child who stopped in the street to tell his mother he was frightened by my mere presence. All I could do was laugh, but it wasn't funny. Even in the intelligible realm, I never know when I'll run into another Immanuel Kant situation. Kant came to agree with you? Yes. It only took 30 years to convince him I wasn't some genetic outlier. Might have gone more quickly if he didn't insist on constantly taking walks. That man's neuroses are overwhelming. If I had known my reward for philosophical clout was in entirety with history's neediest shut-ins, no matter how hard you try, you'll never truly be a member of the colonizing group. Whether they seize upon your mannerisms, your language, or your skin, you will be singled out as different. They won't let you forget. Establishes why these hierarchies are ones we cannot simply ignore. Confronting them is an essential aspect of the overall political debate. Do you believe the oppression of large groups of people is justified? Of course not. Then, do you believe it's okay for just unjust situations to continue? I heard you were a fan of utilitarianism. Maybe it's okay for some to suffer if the rest of the population is content. Ew, gross. No, that's definitely not okay. Then I'm confused. What do you need me to support exactly? The colonial system is dehumanizing and fundamentally immoral. It must come to an end, whatever it takes in order for mankind to move forward. And by whatever it takes, you mean whatever it takes. There can be no limitations on the fight for freedom. It's nice to dream of reform through speeches and negotiations. Certainly those should be attempted. But when those fail, we cannot stop there. People will have to take up arms.
Nonsense.
Wait, hold on. I know I said I wasn't taking the lead, but this is just a hard left turn. Oh, I agree these issues need to be addressed during my time in office. I've tried my best to help do so, but to advocate violence, it can't come to that. Too many empty chairs at empty tables. We have to be better.
Nonsense.
We can't. It does not surprise me that this is where we break, Senator. After all, you staked your life on believing in the system. To consider a reality that conflicts with that, well, I'm sure it provokes dismay. But I am not advocating violence. I'm advocating the end of violence. But you just said, I stand by what I said. Force cannot be eliminated as a tool in resisting oppression. But that is not because violence is desired. It is because society makes it necessary. Allow me to elaborate. Colonization is inherently violent. It relies on enforcing the idea that the native is weak or inferior. The system could not survive the shock. Thus, revolutionary violence breaks the cycle of violence rather than escalating it. You see, Senator, violence is part of the remedy because violence is already in the system. And when we revolt it's not in favor of a particular culture. We revolt because for many reasons we can no longer breathe. Do we really have no good examples of nonviolent reform? The Emancipation Proclamation, the Civil Rights Movement? Ah, yes. I forgot America solved racial injustice twice. I very much look forward to you solving it a third time. Each helped at least, but Pumpkin, neither of those were really peaceful. The Emancipation Proclamation came only in the third year of a war, and the Civil Rights Movement involved countless clashes between protesters and police. I see. Very interesting. Tell me, Senator, how do you reconcile this observation with your current ideals? Oh, well, I mean, there's enough power in the Senate to correct these injustices. Of course there is. But maybe it wasn't used well historically. Historically, of course. Indeed, many successful nonviolent movements worked because their leaders were presented as an alternative to the threat of violence. Violence was therefore still a key part of the solution. Okay, well then, guess it's time for me to ask questions, huh? If political action alone was an effective remedy, the rest would become unnecessary. But because such efforts often fall short, the people are forced to mobilize. This establishes why violence is, in this case, more constructive than destructive. It clears long-standing barriers, allowing better structures to be built. Hold on, Colin. Hold on. I don't understand why the same military force wouldn't steamroll any resistance. Interesting. An understandable assumption. But for several reasons, it's not that simple. In most colonial situations, the natives are far outnumbered the colonists, with the foreign military resources split bits across multiple fronts. The simple truth is the force required to suppress the combined will of the people is beyond even the most well-equipped superpower. Secondly, the conflict changes the economic calculus for the colonizers. Even if they could win, the war effort would destroy the resources that made the colony desirable in the first place. Finally, many colonists are not true believers in the system. Faced with an open conflict, they will sympathize with the oppressor. The longer the conflict rages, the more this sympathy grows. So colonial leaders quickly learn the power of violence and find the answer is not to respond with greater violence, but to relax the tension. Okay, we can hold on to these points. They seem essential to me. I agree. Fanon, would you add them to your argument? Because we're how's this getting? This establishes how even the machinations of capitalism favored the colonized in this conflict. Whatever the cover story, the primary purpose of the colonies is to extract wealth from the colonized region. But conflict makes this impossible, even from a self-interest perspective. it makes sense for the colonists to withdraw. Let me save here. Yet the forces of capitalism actually work in the natives' favor. The economies of the colonies and their motherland are closely linked. War damages the whole institution. So when faced with escalating conflict, the business owners and trade officers at home ask why bother. Profit is their primary interest, and a potential trade deal with an independent country is far more advantageous than a futile fight and made to maintain control. Getting something is better than destroying everything. An all-out struggle to maintain control of the colonies quickly becomes an exercise in self-harm for the colonizer. Continued occupation drains resources from all fronts. It spends riches already obtained and damages those they still wish to extract. Dang it, but Fanon, earlier you said the native will never be allowed to fit in. It's true, settlers would never know the visceral reality of being colonized. Even those with the best intentions can contribute to their alienation. However, your argument takes the situation a step beyond reality. Perfect understanding to not require for good to be good. No group is a monolith. Inevitably, some will always stand against us, but equally, inevitably, some will not. Wish to continue oppression. Will question their own involvement is an important factor in bringing the conflict to an end in the native. Every civil struggle in history reflects this. The oppressed have always found allies among those who could have been or previously were oppressors. These individuals will never be the core of the struggle, but they can help. They can still help. And as a colonial power, and it is inherently more willing to listen to its own citizens. Colonial power? I don't know. We should, or whatever. The colonists are not a monolith. Not all embrace the actions of their governments. Some will even fight against them. A few will even reveal themselves to be nearer to this national struggle than certain native sons. In the end, barriers of blood and race prejudice break down on all sides. Okay, what Fanon is saying here is easy to straw man. I can hear the talk show host now. Fanon wants to murder all the settlers, but that fundamentally is not what he's saying. It's nice to be in a space where a straw man is not the only man that matters. His pitch is about leverage. How if you lack it, you need to create it. The question is, will this method of creating it actually work? There's only one way to find out. A native has obtained status in colonized society, often by translating the native experience for the colonizers. Their success is deeply rooted in the colonial system, so they have a vested interest in the system continuing. Now, these individuals are not uncaring to their fellow natives. They often attempt to use their status to appeal to those in power. If they limit these efforts to acceptable polite channels, meeting the oppressor on their own turf, this approach gives them very little leverage, and without leverage, the results will be wholly inadequate. Anyway, well then, what is the compromise between continue the oppression and stop the oppression? Good news, everyone. We're doing a little less suppression. Confetti and drinks for all. A nice burst of serotonin. These little victories, they may even ease the tension for a while, but in the end, the system continues mostly as before. The native will still be held down. This establishes it, not the native who introduces violence into the system. Okay, this might be it. Hold on. found a problem in your yard. Oh, lay it out for me. Well, you see, yes. Never mind. It doesn't quite. Let's forget I said anything. Unfortunately, the human mind doesn't work like that. Through organizations like the military and police, governments claim the only legitimate license for violence. And in colonial societies, the arm of the law actively seeks out the native, presuming they are guilty. I cannot count the number of times I was stopped by Algerian police solely because they just took me for an Arab. When they discovered I was from Martinique? I can't say that. Martinique. They apologize profusely. Of course, we know Martinican is quite different from Arab. When I protested, saying we are all the same, they laughed and replied, "You don't know them." There is always a target on someone, on whom varies from community to community, but the results are the same. And the violence is not always physical. War is waged on both the body and soul of the native. Depictions of the colonized is stupid, as pitiable, do real physiological harm to native and settler alike. All are key to colonism, and all will persist as long as colonial thoughts does. As long as the colonial system is placed, violence against the colonized is a part of daily life. Native communities are underfunded and over-policed. Natives are viewed always as criminals and never as victims. Okay, it's getting a little real. Whether the force deployed is psychological or physical, it's all works to keep the native in their place. Resistance from the native is directly contrary to the idea that they are weak and consent. It says loudly and clearly that they will not be subjugated. This is a logical extension of the previous statement. As the colony relies on the native being weak to justify the subjugation, the native fighting back challenges the core principle. If society depends on the sky being red, you pull back the curtain to reveal it is blue. There cannot help but be some shock. That or some people will explain it away with some bonker reasoning. How can the sky be real if our eyes aren't real? Yes, confirmation bias is sinister, especially when combined with questionable logic. For a man whose only weapon is reason, there's nothing more neurotic than contact with unreason. Still, necrotic. What did I just read there? Necrotic, whatever. Still, while some will bunker themselves in denial, society as a whole will be unable to avoid the tremors caused by natives asserting their humanity. In rising up, the native asserts their humanity. They proclaim loudly that their pain cannot be ignored. They will not remain neatly packed away out of sight and mind. Establishes why the revolution cannot simply be crushed as you worry. The uprising is a force that will have to be reckoned with. Okay, I'm going to need more backing on this. Weaponry can get pretty insane. Does it matter if you have more people when the other side has a tank? If the people charge the tank head on, then yes, the tank will win. But people are resourceful and will favor guerrilla tactics over head-on conflict. Furthermore, remember we are dealing primarily with situations where an outside country is exerting its influence on a local population. It takes far more effort to ship in a tank than it does for the natives to recruit more numbers. The more brutal the tactics of the colonizer, the easier local recruitment becomes. The natives this force will swell in proportion. So basically, as long as all the people stand together, they are destined to win. Indeed, yeah, until you get nuked. So don't do that. You gotta have a better plan than that. The force needed to counter a united front is unsustainable, even for the greatest common power. Interesting. Spreads to the native population. Colonial forces will inevitably be overwhelmed. Okay, is that what it's setting up for us? Yes! Okay, Fanon, this is a difficult topic. One I'm kind of unqualified to speak about. I just want to acknowledge that before I no more hand wringing Ariadne Jones, do not treat me like I am a delicate. In return, I promise to do the same for you. When you inevitably say something terrible, right. Okay, here goes. You talked at length about how far the colonized will go to be accepted by the colonists, walking, talking, and dressing like settlers, all in hopes of improving their status in society. Correct. They have no other choice. You also said, despite all obstacles in their way, some do integrate, right? On some levels, yes. On some level, yes. Full acceptance is impossible, but they can obtain some degree of comfort. Well then, we have a problem. Because resistance to colonial expression, this cause that should unite the whole of the people, seems unlikely to unite the people at all. Oh, you've observed colonists are not a monolith. Not all will join their side in the struggle. But isn't that also true of the colonized? Many natives won't care about or will outright object to attempts to disrupt society. But the pitch is clearly a good one, no? An end to long-lasting inequalities. Sure, in the long term, but in the short term? What was that? What the fuck? The conflict only represents more instability and hardship, a bitter pill for anyone to swallow. We discussed this with Locke. People will often ignore long-term benefits in the short term and it's painful. Yes, that is a good point. Central to your argument of violence working is that the will of the people is enough to threaten the colonial power. After all, it's only because their power is threatened that they will make concessions. But if too many choose to sit out the struggle, the calculus changes fundamentally. It becomes much more plausible for the colonial power to nip the resistance in the bud. And in that case, violence won't accomplish anything at all. Very, very good, Ariana. Tragically, all of these observations are valid. It even goes beyond sitting out. In Algeria, we had the Harkis, Muslims who joined the French to fight against their own people. Every social group contains multitudes. A cause will never win 100% support. This is the reality all dreams of change must face. Great! So now, even the most drastic measures can solve these problems. Such an optimistic portrait you two have painted. An interesting assertion, Senator, especially as we have not finished painting. Your daughter has correctly diagnosed these problems, but has taken their consequences too far. I have? You have. The complacency of many natives is not to stop. It will not stop the resistance. It will merely change how it starts. Alright, bro, you're reaching there. He's reaching there. Marx dreamed of a workers' revolt, and to end injustice. However, the life of the native worker is too dependent upon the colonial system. Would be revolutionaries will be expelled from the unions and cities for challenging the structure on which others rely. They're among the student of the backcountry, the uneducated people whom the party ignores. The spark will actually light. Okay, wow, that's really what he said. Only then can revolution spread to the cities and to all people as the safety net crumbles. Facing multiple conflicts on multiple fronts, the colonial power will be forced to yield to revolutionary leaders. With fighting at the end, the nation will finally be freed from all the conflicts of the past. Simply put, the promise of a glorious proletariat uprising is not enough for most workers to seek real change. Only among the neglected and the destitute can revolution actually spark. I bet Marx hates this argument. kind of throws him on and the working class under the bus. He's spent quite a few of his sessions sprawled out on my couch, moping about it. You have a therapy couch there? I have a whole office. I need one. Philosophers have no shortage of baggage. You should hear Thomas Aquinas going about his mother. Regardless, once the impoverished masses ignite into action, the security of the colonial system is proven to be an illusion. Is it colonial? Because that's colonization. Colonial. I don't know. Suddenly, there's no reason for the rest of the nation to not join in. The whole of the people are united by the struggle. Alright, are you ready to continue your questioning? As I'll ever be. This builds off your earlier point that many are too ingrained in the system to rise up. It explores how this failure is tied to their sense of security, so we can begin to see the way around it. This shows how the forces that chase would-be revolutionaries and the countryside is where it all begins. They're among the destitute of the backcountry, the uneducated people whom the party ignores. After all, only those touched by colonial life can be bound by it. There are countless examples in history of the country exploding into violence. The Mau Mau uprising in Kenya comes to mind. The neglected in the country are susceptible to any story of horror from the city. They have few references to distinguish fact from fiction. Whoa, bro. That sentence is very important that he just said. True stories of abuse get spun into even greater tales. The settlers bathe in native blood, grind our bones to make their bread. Finally, something snaps. Country folk descend on colonial institutions indiscriminately, attacking police and doctors alike. Whoa, bro! Driven by hate and simultaneous rage, they go further than the revolutionary exiles ever would have. And though these exiles hardly respect the ignorant in the country, they will happily take advantage of the chaos. Colonial life takes place mainly in the coastal cities. The inner country is ignored, left to local warlords and shamans, with little profit to be found there. Neither the colonial forces nor the unions of the colonized pay these starving souls notice. This breeds extensive distrust between those in the city and those in the country. Ignorance allows hate to fester. So while would-be revolutionaries fail in the city, their grievances are perfectly primed to ignite that hate into action. This shows how only once the struggles begin, its embers spread to the whole of the people. Even wet kindling will ignite under the right circumstances. Through all the previous steps, leverage has finally been created to change the national situation. What evidence do you have? When the revolution is spread this widely, everyone fights as if their individual conflict represents the whole of the nation. If the colonists manage to suppress the embers of one location, the fires will only burn more brightly elsewhere. As a result, trying to maintain control stops being an appealing prospect for the colonizing country. As I mentioned in the previous argument, attempts to do so amount to economic self-harm. No colonial force can sustain itself indefinitely when besieged from all sides. Efforts to do so only become more expensive with time. Both of my argument and the chain of events. The The colonists have retreated, and the natives are finally free to build their own nation however they wish. This appears pretty self-evident, does it not? If the colonists withdraw, the future is in the hands of the native once more. What's to stop them from charting a better course forward? As the colonists retreat from the city and country, the revolutionary leaders will be ready to fill the void. Independence is finally achieved. Okay, wow. Fanon has mapped out quite the domino chain here. So many social forces involved. Is there a point where these forces don't line up as neatly as he does, as he thinks? He also keeps taking notes at me. He keeps taking notes, and I don't like it. Discomfort with psychology profiling reflects deep-set insecurities. Simple observation: the strings between the native worker and the colonist system are hardly hidden. They work in the settlers' factories, use the settlers' tools, and earn the settlers' currency to feed their families and build new homes. Their whole livelihood is rooted in the occupation. A revolution would risk everything. There's little doubt in my mind many of the injustices Marx observed reveal. There is significant overlap between the terror of capitalism and the terror of colonism, after all. But his dreams of a glorious worker uprising is unlikely to occur in colonized countries. This is a logical extension of the point you raised, Ariadne. Those invested in colonial society will want to remove revolutionaries before they become a problem. The revolutionaries will put protests on their way out, of course, and try to convince the others to fight. The revolution's imminent. What do you stall for? If you stand for nothing, what do you fall? What? Come again? That was Hamilton. I quoted Hamilton just now. Seemed relevant. The hip-hop musical about your colonial founding fathers. I have thoughts about that too. But even if revolutionaries did make arguments in verse, it would not be enough to convince their fellows to act. Those workers who do speak up, who highlight the clear injustice all around them, will be disowned by those who protect them. I think it is this one. Too much trouble. So they will be forced to leave before the occupying forces catches wind and holds the union responsible, because they never get past the complaining on social media phase. Haha! No, it's not this. To claim the struggle against oppressors, but here the native workers expel all that they fear are too extreme. They're not. That's not unity at all.
Nonsense.
After the conflict explodes into violence, the struggle unites the people. At this stage, that has yet to happen, and as I explore in the later statements, expelling the revolutionaries creates the very conditions for such an explosion to occur. Thus, the vision before the struggle are irrelevant. They will be subsumed as the situation. Okay, no, it's not that one. I was taking a guess. Country folk view cities as the root of the corruption. Inevitably, their rage turns to them. The colonial military. Colonial? I think colonial military. Yeah, I think it's colonial. Military will follow, and once safe streets are thrown into chaos. Against this backdrop, the revolutionary leaders return. Their calls to resist now are amplified by the reality of conflict. But people didn't want revolution before. Why would they now? Most fear the pain of change, but with fighting all around, the pain is already here. There is little left to lose, and much more to gain. What do you mean by this? The unrest is invited into the city by those struggling to survive, those unable to maintain the security of a job and home. And once fighting reaches the city, the colonial world, world is revealed as no truth safe haven for the working. It sounds better, that's how I know it's the right way to say it. With no reason to abstain from the fight, those once paralyzed by security will finally take up arms. The second one is always the hardest. Like, that's what I realized. Let me save again. Yeah, let's get. Alright, Nate, the prognosis is clear. You have game over disorder. You are inexplicably compelled towards game over situations, and I'm afraid it's untreatable. Yeah. Hold on, it's just gonna. It saved me when I had no health, so I only have one try every time. Did it just do new game? God damn it. Revolutionaries. This one is hard, guys. And his is hard because he's actually like really got a good point. Alright, I'm losing. I think I should have saved when I had more health. It's gonna be a minute. Alright. Okay. This chain of cause and effect you've mapped out is incredibly intricate. You've tracked many different social factors and divides between groups to plot a path to successful decolonization. Holds up pretty well. Right up until the end. The biggest force keeps the people untied. And yeah,
fucking hell, I can't read. The biggest force keeping the people united, the revolutionary struggle itself. So tell me, Fanon, what happens when the struggle comes to an end? Oh, excellent catch, Ariadne. I can't believe I missed that. It seems to me there are two toxic hierarchies in your worldview. The first is the relationship between the colonizer and the colonized. The second is the relationship between city and country. Neither relationship is healthy, and the colonial system definitely plays a part in making each worse. But the tension between city and country won't just disappear when the colonial power retreats. And when the common enemy is removed, all that distrust and suspicion will be front and center. But there is a good deal of nuance there. Not everyone in each group will. I appreciate your commitment to not generalizing, Fanon, like honestly. But the fact that we can say not all revolutionaries doesn't change the fact that by your own analysis, the divide here is enormous. And there's no doubt those in the city emerge from this struggle in a far better position than the country folk. What's to stop the revolutionaries in the city from focusing on themselves, or even worse, reestablishing an exploitive relationship with the country? To leave this problem unsolved feels like a job half done. The points you've raised are once again astute. In the aftermath of revolution, we frequently see revolutionaries just act just as you say. They focus on enriching themselves while the country drifts back into ill-formed poverty, no better off than during the colonial regime. These heads of government sell their country to the most terrifying of all enemies, ignorance. Of course, the old colonial power takes no small joy in this. Look how things have gone to hell since we left. We were right about those savages all along. How depressing. Even after that bloodshed, nothing really changes. Oh, I strongly disagree. This half-done job is still better than one unstarted. Did you all believe dismantling colonialism would be clean and easy? Fuck, he wants to go another round? No, of course not. But having no guarantee that life will actually improve for those who fought? Progress or not, that's really, really rough.
Nonsense.
There's no way he wants to go again. A moment, please. Our appointment is not over yet. This is not the first time I've reviewed this problem. A significant part of my work was dedicated to it. There is a way to build a better end state for all. Is it more violence? No, not if done correctly, though. If not, who knows? This guy just won't go down. Oh my fucking god. In the aftermath of revolution, the middle class and revolutionary party can easily slip into the oppressive void left by the colonists. They will rely on nationalism and prejudice to prop themselves up instead of doing the hard work of supporting the people. To prevent the new government from betraying the people, we must reject centralized notions of leadership in favor of education. Thus, the development of government is bound with the development of the people as a whole. So you see, the Revolutionary Party must focus on raising up the people around them. We must rid ourselves of the contemptuous assumption that the masses are incapable of governing themselves. We ought to uplift the people, develop their brains, fill them with ideas. Only then can we rebuild in a way that actually benefits all, overcoming our last great obstacle and preventing the need for a second revolution down the line. Yes, everything can be explained to the people on the single condition that you really want them to understand. This is surprisingly a lot like the dream of Capra, finding ways to bring philosophical education to all, to give everyone opportunities they didn't have before. I've never doubted many of our ideals are aligned, Senator, but I'm deeply skeptical your government will ever have the will to realize such a selfless aim. Look, I've got problems with Mom's plans too, mainly the part where they trapped her in a philosophical afterlife. But let's lay off her a bit. Very well. We'll return to my own thesis. Thesis? Is that how you spell that? Ask your questions, Ariadne Jones. Nose itchy. The colonial power leaves behind that nose. But seizing this wealth is not so much leaping ahead as it is beginning at the end. The nation reaches the late stage of economic development without knowing the determination and innovation of youth. Leaders imitate the most indulgent aspect of the colonial elite, building elaborate mansions and monuments and gaining themselves from the people. Tourism becomes the industry of choice, an easy, lazy way to extract money from European powers. Come to beautiful colony land, no longer technically a colony, but give us money and we'll pretend. You know that the revolutionaries are well positioned to take over the colonial system. Left unchecked, they can pocket an enormous portion of the nation's wealth and never return it to the people as a whole. Okay. So, would you say no? Okay. Alright, I was just asking. This will rely on nationalism and prejudice to prop themselves up instead of doing hard work and supporting the people. It does not stop with those who are once settlers, different tribes. As time passes, the boogeyman change. But I think I need a new statement. That's what it is. Oof, oof, indeed. There it is. Power and prejudice are a dangerous combination. In colonial times, prejudice exists on both sides, but power was entirely in the hands of the settlers. Post-independence, however, the formula is different. The hate of the native is given preference. Citizens or demand foreigners be purged from public life, and since doing so doubles as consolidating power for the government, it will oblige. I think it might be the second one with that loyalties thing. But hold on. What evidence do you have to support this? The educational infrastructure divide between city and country remains independent. Power will still on one side of them. How decentralized are we talking? And how does that mesh with education? Are we going full anarchy? Fanon's cool no rule school? Not at all. The free-form nature of anarchism would struggle to elevate and inform the uneducated as needed. This does mean, however, we must avoid having all the power concentrated in one place. Leadership, education, defense, all should be brought to the people nationwide, not hoarded by bureaucrats in cities. Still, I'd like to hear more about how, if we can. Fair enough. I will expand on these ideas. When you live in a place for long enough, you become connected to it, so the leaders will become connected to the people of regions otherwise ignored. They will see what is lacking for them to and leverage the national apparent, which is to fix the issue. Sometimes foreign technology and assistance may be required, but in the process, the native should always be educated on these tools. Thus, the people learn to build their own bridges and man their own machines. Soon, they are innovating beyond the template of before. In place of a standing army, citizens should be armed. Any conflicts that must be self-sustaining body, sooner or later it will find itself without any definite mission. Auto generals would draw up their own manifestos and come to threaten the government. The only way to avoid this is to refocus these individuals on other tasks, and engineering is a 1,000 times more indispensable to his country than an officer. After all, unless an external power attempts to assert control, what threat would demand a standing army? What if tomatoes start coming alive and killing people? Why? Ultimately, as ridiculous as that example is, such a threat would illustrate the effectiveness of the militia. I mentioned earlier, the people may disagree on many things, but they would be united by the desire to not be murdered by tomatoes. What do you mean by this? We shouldn't have no permanent soldiers. The number of permanent officers should be kept to a minimum. Instead, the people should be prepared as a militia, ready to fight if the need arises, but dedicated to other tasks. So I have 2 jobs, and nah, bro, I'm not doing that. This is another example of how centralized government can hurt the newly independent nation. This is my conclusion. I believe it's sufficiently conclusive. As long as the people remain uneducated, there's no hope for the nation to elevate itself. Everything we've discussed illustrates this. But with the whole of a nation apparatus focused on education, we can build a successful nation. That was confusing to read. The government is not for the people. It is of the people. The growth of government must grow the people as well. We must try relentlessly and passionately to teach the masses that everything depends on them. If we stagnate, it is for their responsibility, and we can go. I know Fanon is talking about newly liberated countries, but some of this stuff sounds familiar. What do you mean? I mean, like the government focusing on enriching themselves, using prejudice and resentment to keep people complacent. Does that all ring a little true for you? What do you mean? Too real. Okay, let's get back to the theoretical ex-colonized country. This point illustrates that the most central point of centralized government is also the center of potential corruption. Makes sense. It's clearly an essential observation. It might be this one. Get it? Like essential. He deserves to. Ooh, but you said central a lot, so your compulsive punning almost qualifies as a disorder. Trying to pun your way out of this. What evidence? For a hero is always questionable. It encourages people to look to the top instead of to their fellows. To improve the situation, during the revolution, such figureheads had a use, awakening the people and setting them on a forward march, heroic and unmitigated. But after the revolution, a leader talk of unity is no longer a call to action, it is a call to complacency. They put the people to sleep, and 3 or 4 times a year ask them to remember the colonial period and bask in how far they've come. Once you were stepped on by foreign colonists, now you are stepped on by people who looked like you. Yes, we must prevent the party from ever becoming a willing tool in the hand of the leader. I ain't gonna lie to y'all, this is the most reading I've done. Like he talks a lot. Jesus, I'm glad I didn't do like a major voice for him. I would not be able to keep talking for him. Keep a careful eye on those who led the people in the past. Where once their powers of persuasion were used for good, now they are likely to be used for ill. This is the core of the solution to everything we discussed. The only way to fix the divide between the party is the city and the people. Okay, I think it's this one. It's the core, and it's talking about dividing. The leading members of the party ought to avoid the capital as if it had a plague. By locating themselves among the country, instead they will have to serve the needs of each region and primary among those. Hopefully, Yes, I was right. Okay, first things first. If mistrust between city and country is the last great obstacle for nation building, you have a nice plan to tackle the mistrust, focusing the entire national apparatus, okay, whatever, on empowering the neglected. That'll do a lot of good. Oh, how interesting. Is this it then? Is this it then? Also, found out. Didn't mean for to knock that down. Well, he's tackled what was presented as the last great obstacle. But beyond that obstacle, look several hundred more. Oh no, what's he riding now? Bombastic exclamations are endearing, but often thinly justified. Better get to the point, Ariadne. As Fanon laid out the problems with the post-colonial governments, one thing became clear. City and country is not, in fact, the only toxic dynamic that remains. Society contains countless ethnic, political, and religious divisions, each bound with their own explosive packages of resentment. So we have more steps to take. I'm aware of this. I highlighted these problems myself. As we raise the people up, we'll find ways to address them. Well, there's the rub. The methods you propose to raise people up to avoid clashes between city and country, they make countering other conflicts far more difficult. Having remote pockets of government focus on local issues is wonderful for activism, and a militia instead of an army definitely puts power in the hands of citizens. But things get more complicated when local population A hates local population B. If you train them all to fight and remove all countermeasures, what do you do if they turn on each other? If you raise them up, teach them all to be better. But you said yourself, no cause gets 100% support. Someone will inevitably act on hatred. Old hatred. You also stated that when fighting breaks out, the safety net collapses, reasons for restraint disappear. You'll wind up with a free-for-all, with no one capable of reining it in. Fanon, you're covering the floor with gasoline and hoping no one lights a match. That's a good-ass... Bro, that was good. That was a good-ass comparison. Is that a comparison? Remarkable. Fortitude under duress. For someone of her background, Ariadne Jones is capable. Sometimes when I'm feeling truly self-destructive, I review the more recent history of Algeria, the country I fought so hard to liberate. I wasn't alive when independence was achieved. If I had been, maybe I could have made a difference. But the country's history is dominated by coups and civil wars, everything I hoped to avoid, all rooted in the fundamental failure of the government to unite its people. Factionalism? Damn, it's always an ism. Damn! May have fruited under colonialism, but it is also a sociological fact that no theory of unity can abolish. Damn. And yet, I still believe somewhere out there, a bright future, none of us will have imagined awaits, something different from the European model of the past, paying regard to the prodigious thesis she has put prejudice, whatever, forward, but also aware of her crimes. We can turn over a new leaf. We can work out new concepts and set forth a new man. Yes, I still believe despite all evidence. Forgive me, my small cognitive dissonance. Of course, Fanon. Pythia Smith, I have one last thought for you as well. I can, on some level, appreciate your belief in the system. Surely democracy should be able to empower the people and change what needs to be changed. But whatever the merits of their ideas, the action of European men have failed to bring the problem of mankind to an indefinitely higher plane. Do not be another who falls short. Fight past all the barriers, whatever it takes. Perhaps you just can. Thank you, Fanon. Fanon? I was saying his name wrong the whole time, maybe. That was, hey, at least you kind of got this endorsement at the end there, right? as much as he ever endorsed someone who's so embedded in the colonial system. That's what you wanted. You have to feel good about that, huh? I don't know anymore. What? Adney, look, I'm tired of disappointing you. It's time for me to admit what's been obvious from the start. Our system isn't perfect. And I guess I'm walking evidence of that, huh? In my position, constantly baying from supporters any way you can, admitting you've changed your mind can be a death sentence. People who agreed with you before feel betrayed. People who agree with you now mock you for being slow or doubt your sincerity. That's facts. There's no winning. That's why you had to double down. And I hate double down. So really you gotta just face the music sometimes. So the longer I participate, the more I dig in. I stop learning and just fight. What you do is you face the music and you instantly implement something so that, they shut up. They won't really shut up, but it'll shut them up for the time being. I fought Confucius. I fought you. I fought everyone we've encountered. And I didn't even question what I believed. Deep down, it was just what I had to do. No perfect system would encourage such a toxic cycle. Mom, I don't believe it. Why now? I tried to tell you this. Dad, look, this is what I was just, you didn't have to say I tried. Okay, whatever. Dad tried to tell you this. We all tried to tell you this. I don't know. I was so focused on the good I thought I could do. I guess I didn't care. But I'm going to lose my election, Daddy. I'm going to lose. So what does it matter? Well, I don't know if that's true or not. Not really. But no matter what, at least we can get you out of here now, right? That's the most important thing to me. It's true. Pythia's viewpoint has fundamentally shifted, it seems. Tell the gate what you've learned. Let the way home open. Very well. Gate, here is the answer. The one I should have given long ago. People have views that don't make sense, that are often driven by spite. They'd rather vote for someone who gives them easy answers, someone like Tucker, than pursue hard truths. Knowing we're all so lost, how can anyone ever hope to govern well? In the end, my daughter was right. There's no societal structure that won't have fatal issues. Nothing happened. Maybe it didn't hear you. No, it hurt her. I don't understand. That felt right, Adney. It felt honest, more honest than I've been in years. And isn't that all it was supposed to take, Arbiter? An answer that was true? Proof I can grow? Well, what's more true than humanity's ability to utterly screw itself? I'm afraid the way remains closed to you. So that's it, then? Mom, I'm sorry, Adney. I don't think there is anything more I can do. The gate is never going to open. I'm stuck here. Alright guys, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Leave a like, subscribe if you haven't, and I hope to see you in the next episode.